All right, we're gonna test this angle. That looks hilarious. Huh? Okay, cool. All right, so let's come over here and see if this angle works out. I'll take a couple things off and then we will go from there and adjust as needed. This feels really funny on my head. So to tear this one down, the valve cover's already been off of it. I just threw 2 bolts in it to bring here, basically just to cover it back up. So let's grab a 10 mil and grab those, take them off. I think I already had 10 mil over here. Yep. And a short extension. So this guy, might need to turn it down slightly more. I can't tell how far down you guys are angled. Or up, one of the two. We'll get it right here after a couple tries. Ignition's already been taken out. I basically just laid this cover in here to transport it. And these are not even valve cover bolts for an M50. These are off of an M5. I just snagged them because I couldn't find the bolts for this cover. So now we just pull out the ignition like we did in the other one. All those 10 mils are already out of here. Okay, and the cover's also free because, like I said, it was just laid on there. So all this non-vano stuff on this side, and we'll put the cams and trays and everything on that. Tyler's Vano stuff over there. And I'll probably stop here shortly just to double check this video angle and make sure that I'm not doing a whole bunch of work without you guys really being able to see anything. So same deal, cam splash cover, it just kind of clips in. Get this old valve cover gasket off of here. Just pop it up. So it's just got these little tabs here. And usually those don't actually break, so just be careful with it and you can keep reusing it. It's good plastic. Spark plug tube gaskets, obviously those are getting replaced. And so now we're at the point basically where with the other engine we would be taking off the vanos and stuff. As you can see, there's a flat plate here. All these have actually already been removed. I only bolted it over here just to get the engine hoist for the chain. There's a mount right there on these motors and then one at the back of the block right here. It's a very good way to grab it in the middle. And since the engine's canted over by 30 degrees towards me, that's kind of a good weight balance as well. Because as you can see, the pan's like offset over here, and that's just kind of center line and center of gravity. So now we're gonna pop these cams out. Since there's no vanos to remove, I'll just remove this front plate and then the water pump and all this stuff like we did on the other one. But now you're gonna get to see it live. So these are 13s, and then thermostat housing, there's 3 10s right there. 10s on the water pump, and then we use the trick where we put in the 6 mil bolts to draw the pump itself out. We're also going to be removing the crank pulley and all the accessories and everything. We're completely stripping this one, so let's get to it. Let's see, I need a 10 for the thermostat housing. I can't really tell what angle you guys are at right now. But I actually do have my DeWalt 3/8 guns here, so I'm gonna use that. This guy, zap these a little quicker. Okay, now we need a 13 mil for those two for the thermostat housing. Once again, this one has an aluminum thermostat housing. That's good because some of them came plastic. I guess they only came plastic in the later motors. Maybe they just cheaped out. So yeah, get this 13 on here. Okay, now we can pull off the bracket. And let's see, is there gonna be coolant? Hopefully not. Actually, there's no way there should be coolant here. Man, this one's on there though. Dang. There we go. Okay, so same story as the other engine, crusty as hell. This guy, whoever owned this engine years ago, did not change the coolant. often enough or did not use the correct coolant. So flush your coolant, guys. Thermostats, I'm sure, stuck. We'll just worry about that later. So now, water pump pulley. Let's see. Whoops, gotta be careful on that. Usually you can do it with the belt still on. This one doesn't have a belt on, so let me hold it with another 10. Oh man, all my sockets are falling out of place. What happened? Lisa, what'd you do? That's not right. 12. Okay, and here's a 10. So we'll hold it with 1. So if you don't have a belt on there, you can hold it in one direction to tighten it. Zap it the other way. And then the last one, you kind of just gotta get lucky. There we go. And the pulley should just pop right off, but it's probably just been on there so long. There we go. So those 4 go in there. Where did I put the thermostat housing? Oh, it's right there. Okay. All right, now the water pump. So these 10s. I lost that one back there somewhere. All right, and then we're gonna use those 6s that came out of the thermostat housing. Drive in here, and we're not gonna use the impact on this because you don't wanna, make sure to do it real evenly and stuff. So, yeah, we don't wanna hurt anything. Get those in until they're touching. Already was a 10. All right. See if you guys got a good angle on this. So you can see how it's starting to separate already. Just drives it forward. This one's actually coming off more nicely than the other one, which is good, I guess. Now, let's see if we're about to get a bunch of coolant dumping out of here. Hopefully not. Remove this just in case. I really didn't think it had coolant in it, but I was wrong on the other one. Might be wrong again. Yep, there's some in there. All right, I'm gonna try to put a pan under this and let that drain before I pull that all the way out. Let's let that seal work. All right, I'm also gonna stop the video here for just a second because I wanna make sure that the camera angle for you guys is working out. Right now, I'm basically staring at the thermostat housing, water pump, and I don't really know where relative to that you guys are. So you obviously need to be looking where I'm looking, and it's not on my eyeballs, it's on my head. Since I don't turn my head like a bird, looking at everything, and you can actually move your eyes, it's kind of, gotta make sure that the angle's right for you guys. So let me check that real quick and we'll come back to it. Oh, it's working, cool. That's a pretty neat feature. Alrighty, I'm gonna check the angle one more time here with the GoPro app. Where'd it go? There it is. Inception. Okay, cool. And make sure it's still recording. Which it is. Sweet. All right, so I saw the angle at some of the end of that video didn't turn out the best, but so apologize there. I'll try to bend my head down more when I'm working closer to my body. That way you guys get a better angle. So here's a non-Vanos front cover plate. That's just what they look like when you don't have Vanos. Now we need to remove the timing chain tensioner right here, and the gear has actually already been unbolted. We need to remove this upper tensioner and get the gear out, and then we can get the cams out. So let's do that. We need an 11mm socket for those guys. And this can go with these parts. Let's see, and I should have an 11 out because it was doing cams. Where is it? There it is. Okay, so the tensioner is a 10. And we'll just use the gun to zap that one. It's not going to hurt anything. And I've actually already pulled out the piston and the spring from right here. Typically there would be a guide rail and thing on top here. What else? I thought that was it. Oh, there's one more. I'm stupid. Dude. Would help if you got all the bolts out, dude. Okay, there's that tensioner. Now we need to get out this guide rail. Actually, no, we already talked about this on the other motor. I can slide this forward enough. Once the tensioner is out, you can slide the exhaust cam gear forward enough to get the chain off of it and get the gear out of the way and pull the cams before pulling this guide rail. But we're gonna pull that anyway because it has to come off when the head goes into the hot tank at the machine shop. So let's get this off. I think it's a, man, that's a different looking tensioner too than the M50. Maybe it's unique to non-Vanos. Anyways, I think that's a 19 on the end or maybe 22 here. So let's see. Let's see if I got a 22 actually. I think I have one with me. And that's a 23, 21. Everything else, not very organized over here. Yet, 24, Jesus, there's 22. It's probably not even, oh, it's a 32, I'm stupid. Okay, there's no way I have a 32. We'll just take out the 19 out of the end. That should do it. I do have a 19, right here. Okay. It's actually two pieces, but it broke free over here. This piece comes out of the end as well. Oh, great, we got oil coming out here. Time to get another pan. Or just something under it. It's probably not gonna drip very much. Maybe I'll just put this cardboard under it. Let's just do that. It'll be okay. I'll survive. I'm gonna probably end up pressure washing the garage anyway after doing all this because there's just little stains I got here and there, and don't want to get everything too nasty. Keep the garage nice. Alrighty, come on, baby. I don't know what that was. Big old piece of dirt or something just fell off. There we go. Here's the tensioner. And it is quite oily. Let me put it in the valve cover. Okay, and paper towels. All right, so that's gonna drip maybe just a little bit, but it should be fine. And now we've got slack on the timing chain. We should be able to wiggle this forward like I did on the Vanos motor. There we go. We don't even actually need to get the gear out of it. We just need it to clear the cam there. So it will. Now let's take the cams out. So like I said in the other video, these are 11 mils and you just basically loosen the cams very slowly, and you just really have to pay attention to which ones have pressure on them. So no pressure, no pressure, no pressure, no pressure, no pressure, pressure, okay? So basically, the pretty much easiest way to think of it is don't loosen this one when all the other ones are tight. If that's the only one pushing, it's gonna snap the cam right there. Okay, same thing on the other side. So we'll just go slow, quarter turn. Oh, come on, baby, there we go. And I literally go a quarter turn at a time, at least for a little bit, just to get it moving, get the cam moving upwards. And then you can kind of just be smart with which ones are pushing. Like eventually you can just loosen all of the ones that have no pressure on them and just focus on making sure the cam is coming up smoothly. And then you'll be fine. So there's not going to be any pressure up here at the front. Maybe on this one, yeah, I feel a little bit of tension on that one. Maybe a tiny bit there. All right, and you also basically want to pay attention to the gap on the cam caps and make sure that there is a gap coming up on all of them and not just some. Typically, it's also a good idea to tap with a rubber mallet just like on the caps as you're removing them. That way you're really making sure that it's free and not bound up in the journal. Like if you get one end of the cam coming up more than the other, that can really screw you up. It'll bind it up and you'll have angle on the cam. Yeah, I mean, you can save it. It's not like you're gonna break it if you're still careful from that point, but it's just a clusterfuck, basically. Much easier to just do it this way. I should probably time lapse this part, but oh well. You guys skip ahead like 2 minutes at this point, or maybe I should even just, I mean, you understand this procedure. It's just a slow one, and since we're doing it live, you kind of just gotta bear with me here. So I was gonna start loosening that one, but it has a little bit of pressure still. We're not gonna. The front of the cam also sets the thrust. You can see there's a machined surface here. So this is basically the thrust bearing or the thrust journal for the cam. So that one's like, that if it's gonna get angled up and messed up, it's gonna be caught in the front. So even if there's no load on the front cam lobes, you still need to be wary, be leery of the front thrust there. Okay, I think we're still doing fairly well. I don't feel anything weird. We'll just keep going, and I'll basically cut the video after I get this one cam out, and then I'll do the other one and get the trays out, because there's, you know, it's the exact same thing and it's just kind of a tedious procedure. I already showed you how the trays come out separately from the head in the other video, which is really nice. Like I mentioned, if you have any kind of debris in the motor and you need to clean it out, it's not going to ruin the head entirely. You can actually just change the trays out. So that's a nice feature. Still got some pressure on some of these. Definitely feel it. You can kind of notice like some of them will just turn super easily, the half turn, and the other ones have a little bit of pressure. The front one still has a little bit of pressure. This one basically zero. That one has a tiny bit. This one should be zero, but it has a tiny bit because it's next to a loaded one. That one's got some. That one's got a tiny bit, but basically none. Tiny bit again. So as you can see, I mean, it's, the valve springs are pushing up on the cam, and you know, when the cam's in place, it's sitting there holding the valves open. So there's quite a bit of pressure that's there. It's just distributed well when everything's tight. So, and supported well when everything's tight at each journal. Any day now. You guys can skip ahead at this point if you want. I totally understand. I know this is tedious. I'm almost done, I think. My hand's actually already getting tired because of doing this stupid quarter turns. I could probably go to half turns at this point, or even more than that. I'm just kind of trying to show you, like, this is something you really want to take your time on one of these, just because they are hollow cams, and you don't want to damage anything. If the engine's not damaged, chances are most of it can be reused and be a 500 horsepower monster here in a short bit. But if you fuck stuff up, then you gotta go get replacement pieces, and your budget build becomes not so budget. So it's always good to try to take care of what you got. If you can, do your best. All right, we're almost there. I see all the caps pretty much wiggling at this point, which means that they basically have no pressure. They're wiggling left to right. So see, you can kind of see that one move, that one's moving. That means that there's still a tiny bit there. Pretty much there though. This can go by finger now, so just loosen these a little bit. Yeah, we're there. This is such light pressure that I'm doing with just my hands here that there's no way it's going to be a problem at this point. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull the caps off. And like I mentioned in the other video, you read them: A for exhaust, E for intake, so A, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You can't possibly get them mixed up because they are all marked from the factory. So just put them back in the correct locations and in the correct direction. And you read it from the passenger side of the head. So let's get all these off. Oops. And it helps when you're doing this as well to have the engine tilted over like this when you take out the trays, because the lifters are all going to try to fall out of the bottom of the tray. And ideal, in a perfect world, you would keep the lifters matched in the locations that they've worn in the entirety of the engine's life. So what you want to do is pull the cam out, and then when you're pulling the lifter tray out, try to keep it at an angle low to where the oil film can hold the lifters in sufficiently that you can basically then flip them over, and then they'll just fall down into the pockets. Like over on these here, these lifters obviously come out, and you just want to keep them in the hole that they've been wearing in their entire life. So that's just good practice. It's probably not as critical as some other stuff, but it's just good practice. Okay, let's get these caps off. These cams also, I didn't really talk about the wear on this thing, but these cams also look really good. There may be slightly more journal wear on this one than on Tyler's motor, but it still looks really good. Nothing's catching at all on the finger. I just see a couple lines in there, as you can see. But nothing that a very light polishing won't take care of. And as long as it's smooth and has no rises in the bearing cap or the journal itself on the cam, then you're fine. You can basically just polish it smooth, and any kind of indentation will just hold a little bit of extra oil. So it's really not a problem at all. And just make sure you don't have like a huge imperfection of something sticking up, right? Okay, let's get this cam out. As you can see, it's nice and free. We can take a look at it. So the journals, I'm looking at the very last one here. That would be the last one oiled, and it actually still looks really good. If anything, this one has a tiny line in it. You can see right down the middle, and then a couple of tiny lines in that one. But none of this is anything to be worried about whatsoever. This is a great cam, good looking camshaft right here. So I'll go ahead and put this down. This is the exhaust cam, very mild duration. And you can tell it's not an M3 cam, if you're ever wondering, by the shape of the lobe at the point. So you see how it comes at a very steep angle. It's basically ramping up very quickly to lift. It goes from low lift to high lift in a very short period of time. On an M3 cam or a higher duration cam, you don't have a point like that because you can't have that much lift and duration and basically have the valve happy. This can just ramp up and off quickly because it's at a low duration. You can't do that when you have a bunch more lift and duration. I don't need to go any more technical than that. Okay, so here's the lifter tray. If I pull it forward, you can see that none of the lifters are really coming with it. I can kind of get my hands in there and hold them in one by one as I bring it forward, but basically they're probably going to fall out. So what I'm going to do is very slowly let them fall and just watch exactly where they go. That way I can put them back in the correct locations. Okay, so everything's still in order. 1, 2, 3, this one 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, that's all of them. So now, oh, I get a washer. Oh, that was a random washer that was on the valve cover earlier. Nothing to do with the inside of the engine. So now we take the lifters, put them back in their corresponding holes. Okay. All right, that's one cam out, one tray out, all the lifters out. Now we can see the valve springs. And I don't know if you guys can see in there, but looky what we've got there, dual valve springs. So on the 1992 BMW 325 and 525, they have dual valve springs and one-piece valves from the factory. That means you can basically rev the snot out of these things and they don't have any issues. Yeah, so you can run a whole bunch of boosts. You basically never have valve float. You can rev them to 8,000 RPMs, completely stock valve train. So that's why I'm choosing this specific head to go back in my coupe. And none of the other M5X or S5X have this. They're all single. So basically you have to run Super Tech or whatever like I have in my other engine. But if you happen to have a non-Vanos around you and you want to do a hybrid that's cheap, that can make 600 plus horsepower, here you go, non-Vanos valve springs. You'll also see once we get to the bottom end in a little bit that the rods are some beefy boys and they can also handle a massive amount of torque. So I'm gonna cut the clip there, get the other cam out, and then we will do the head bolts live. Sick. All right, here we go. So got the other cam out while you guys were waiting, or while the GoPro was charging rather. Now we're gonna take all the head bolts off, and I don't remember the exact torque sequence, but basically when you're torquing them down, it involves going from the inside out. So you start 1, 2, or it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and it goes in a crisscross pattern to distribute the load outwards on the head. So when you're untorquing it, you do the reverse. So we're not gonna worry very much about exactly which one should be first, rather. We're just gonna go ahead and do outside in a crisscrossing pattern, and it should be fine. There's not very much torque on the factory head bolts anyway. It's like around 60, I believe, which is a fair amount, but you know, it's not gonna hurt anything. A stock, or not a stock, an ARP head stud torque's just a lot more torque than these things, so we pretty much have nothing to worry about. All right, wish I had a little bit more extension on this ratchet. See if I do have another extension over here. No. Maybe in here. Oh yeah. Okay. Well, we've got a super long one. I guess that'll work. Just want to be able to get away from those studs. That way we're not bumping into them. Oh, here we go. We'll just use 2 short ones. Okay. Now my hands aren't gonna jam into a stud and make me start cussing. Yeah. Come on, baby. Go. Would help if I had a 1/2 inch to 3/8 adapter, and then I could use my 1/2 inch ratchet over there. This thing doesn't have very much leverage, not a super long ratchet. So it looks like I'm struggling, but which I am struggling, is just because I don't have very much leverage here. And because I haven't been hitting the gym lately, you know? Come on, baby. Yeah. There we go. This one's loose now. All right, see, we've got the 4 outers, right? Yep, all right. 4 outers, so this one may not be the perfect sequence, but it's gonna be fine. Oh, come on, baby. Jesus. I didn't say this video would be elegant. There are a lot of these fuckers. Okay. And there's 2 left. Move an engine stand over here. Okay, we got them all, thank God. Now, we can zap them the rest of the way out. This gun's actually not strong enough to remove those, and I didn't really want to blast them with the Milwaukee, but I suppose I could have. Watch out. Also, if I didn't already mention, but you can see these are nice dual valve springs in there. So you don't really have to touch those at all. I will remove them just because we're gonna have the head decked, and I think you have to remove the valves and everything to do that properly. So we'll do that. Let's get all these out. And then I'll probably turn the engine a little bit more upright and we'll pull the head off, just in case any more fluids are in there. Try to minimize dumping them on the garage floor, making a mess. What I do best. All right. Again, we've got a bunch of, these are all just trash. They're one-time use stretch bolts. And they're not really worth anything. They don't clamp the head nearly hard enough for turbo applications. So it's a great idea to get ARP head studs. Just ARP 2000s, 10mm stock thread size is totally fine. They're about 200 and something bucks a set, 220 maybe. Not too bad. All right, these are going in the trash along with the rest of them. Okay, now chain is free to drop down the timing cover, and got all those bolts out. We do need to make sure we get the other bolts out here, and it actually looks like they're already removed, so I might have stolen those for Jason's engine. I was wondering why I had the front of this one open already when it was sitting in the container, and I think that's why. I'm pretty sure that we stole 2 special Torx bolts for his engine. Damn it, shouldn't have given him those. Oh well. Okay, let's clean up a little bit, tilt this more upright. Where's my handle for this thing? I think it's out in the truck, damn it. Okay, how about something else? Which way are we leaning here? There we go. Alrighty. Come on over. How am I there's still coolant in this thing? This is insane. And now I'm dumping oil too. Okay, we're not doing that. We're stopping where it was. Head's coming off the side, so I'm not about to make even more of a mess. Jesus Christ. Okay. You win some, you lose some. Forgot to get some kitty litter too. That's something that's good to soak this up, soak up oil stains. but I am severely underprepared, clearly. If this thing has a pan full of oil, I'm gonna be a little bit upset, but it may be. Okay, let's just see if the head will wiggle off. All right, got all the bolts out. There's no bolt underneath those. Those are just top rail. That one's out. I left the guide rail on the other head, so I know that doesn't have to be removed. I think this thing's just really stuck, and I'm kind of scared because it's at an angle to pull on it that much. But it is really on there. Let's see, could we be missing a bracket or something over here? Possibly something that bolts to the block that we're not thinking about. No, the head's above that. That's on the block. This is just a free hose. There's a couple sensors. There's a water hose here, but that should be fine to at least come off the dowels. It is really on there. Okay. Huh. Well, I guess let's remove this guide rail and make sure there's not some weird different bolt set up on a non-Vanos up front. There could be, I don't know. Actually, I never pulled the non-Vanos apart, so I'm learning as we go. Here's that one. It could be that one of these guide rail bolts is really long and goes all the way down into the timing cover, but I really didn't think that was the case. We'll find out. That one's definitely not. Oops. Well, I thought this was going to be like a super smooth, just pull the head right off and I'd look like a hero, but whatever. Stuff happens. Those are definitely not going down into the timing cover. So, although that one might have. Yep, that was it. So I guess on a non-Vanos, because I did not pull that bolt out on the other one, I don't believe. But I guess on a non-Vanos it goes through that far. I'm gonna double check that, but I bet you that's all it was. I say that. Still not coming up. You can wiggle it a bit. I don't know if I've ever had a cylinder head this stuck. What to do? What to do? There's oil drains. Well, guys, I'm gonna pause the video there, I suppose, and try to figure out what's going on here. Everything checks out as far as I'm concerned. No tensioner in there. All of these have been removed. There's really nothing else to remove. The spark plugs are still in it, but that's fine. And there's nothing external bracketing wise that I can see. I mean, it's just a normal cylinder head to me. But this is a non-Vano, so I don't know. Or maybe it's just like been on there so long that it is really on there and I need to pry on it or something, which I will do, but I want to make sure I'm not missing something first, something stupid. So we're gonna continue taking a peek around here. So this hose is in the back of the timing cover, which is not even part of the head, so that doesn't even matter. That can be hooked up still. The head just comes off right there. And I mean, maybe it's just really on there because it's been on there forever. I can try prying on it, I guess. I don't think I have any pry bars here though. I have to get creative. All right, well, let me come up with a method and I'll get back to you guys because I don't want to ramble on and make this a really long video. I'll figure out what's going on here, we'll get the head off, and then we'll readdress it. Sick. All right, guys, I figured out why the head was stuck. It was just the single Torx bolt behind the rail that goes to this point, and I just didn't remember it being that long and going that far, so that was, just to recap real quick, because that last few minutes was kind of a cluster. So this is the guide rail up top, and it's just one of these 3 bolts, which is now down here somewhere. Oh, here it is, this one. So it's a pretty long Torx, small Torx, but it was holding the front cover, and then it was basically just stuck on the dowels because it had a really good head gasket seal, actually. The head gasket was stuck to the head and to the block really, really well. And you can see there's no combustion, signs of combustion breach through. Like you can see the fire ring separation. There's actually even a line in between. It just looks like a perfect head gasket seal. So that's really good. Also, I want to see if I can get a light in here for you guys, but in the last video I was talking about factory cylinder wall cross hatching and how they hone the cylinder walls in an X pattern. Well, I'm hoping you guys can see that X pattern right there. That is an example of factory cross hatching, and that is really good actually. That means that it's had, you know, very minimal cylinder bore wear. If anything, you would be looking for like long streaks up and down the cylinder where maybe a ring was riding or something, or a ring was butting up against another one if it got too hot, but this looks really good. So quick hone on that, just clean it up, maybe not even a hone. We'll see what the machine shop, what Dennis says, but that's an example of factory cross hatching. I'm gonna turn the light off here. So there's some crap in here just because the engine's been open to atmosphere in the container for a little bit. Now we basically need to get all the accessories off. So the AC bracket, which is a bunch of 13s, and the tensioner goes with it. Then we'll need to remove the power steering pump, alternator, and then finally the oil filter housing. All this bracketing over here, the engine mount arm, as well as the power steering tank and the fuel filter bracket. All that stuff needs to come off. That way we can get to flipping it over and then remove the oil pan. And then we're gonna jam a piece of wood into the oil pan, basically to stop a main journal from turning, to essentially lock the crank. And then I'm gonna blast the crank nut off with the Milwaukee after we have it essentially locked with something safe that's compressible and much softer than any metal parts inside. And then we'll pull the crank pulley off, and then we can pull out the rotating assembly entirely, the pistons, rods, crank, drop it all out the bottom. So let's get to that. But actually right now, I think I'm just gonna time lapse this instead of explaining every step, because this is pretty simple stuff. Like, if you're confident enough to get to this point and do it yourself, you should be confident enough to figure out, oh, I've got some 13 millimeter bolts. I need to take those out. That bracket comes off. Like, everything at this point is pretty self-explanatory. Just go find the bolts and take them off. And so I'm gonna time lapse this rather than talking through it. So we'll see how that goes now. All right, guys, we got all the accessories off. I time-lapsed it. I don't know if I did that correctly. That's my first time trying to do a time-lapse, so it may have not worked at all. Who knows? I'll find out here in a little while after I'm done with all this stuff and get a chance to look at the videos. So right now we're gonna pull off the oil pan, and it's a 10mm everywhere, I think. So let's grab our tin. All the accessories are off except the AC bracket I can't get off because this 13mm right here needs to come off, and the huge crank wheel is blocking it actually. So I didn't remember that being a thing, but I've also noticed a couple things are different on this non-Vanos, like the oil filter housing pressure switch location is weird, I think. It's out front here. Let's see, where is it? So this goes against the block. It's out right here, yeah. And on M50 Vanos, it's like over here somewhere, or it's like going out this direction, not here. So that's, make sure you got a good look at that because I didn't know. There we go, okay. And now let's pull this pan off, and then we're gonna get the crank bolt off. And come on, baby. And then all the rotating assembly out. So basically we're almost finished stripping it. And I'm showing you this complete process on my engine that's going back into my coupe because, like we said earlier, we're not tearing Tyler's down all the way, just the head's going to the machine shop. I am still gonna put it on a stand tonight, flip it over, pull the oil pan off, and pull the oil pump off because we're gonna take both oil pumps to the machine shop to be welded. It's gonna weld the gear to the nut, not to the shaft, because you don't want to put too much heat in the shaft, you can weaken them. So basically just on the outside a little bit. That way you can hit the limiter all the time and the oil pump nut won't back off or anything like that. Okay. A couple of long ones back here. And then there's some I can't get to with the gun underneath here. These pans are just one piece. There's not a lower pan or anything. Let's see if we can, those there. Okay, and I can get to one more here. Now we just gotta use the 10 and a ratchet. Okay. Yeah, we're done there with that. These are like the only three that are kind of a pain to get to, but still not too bad. I really hope that time lapse worked because I was removing a lot of stuff, but I didn't want you to have to sit through every single second of removal of like going to get tools. It didn't actually take that long, but it's kind of boring stuff where I don't really have anything to contribute. And I also get tired talking for quite so long, to be honest. So yeah, it's, you know, there's only so much you can say about remove these bolts, remove that bolt, remove, you know, whatever. Alrighty, I think we're about loose here. I can't remember if these have to come off or not. Let's see, is that part of that piece? Yes, it is. So these go into the rear cover. Those need to come off too. That should do it. There's none anywhere here. Nothing down the middle that I've missed. All right, let's tug on it, see if the pan comes up. Don't tell me it's gonna act like the head did. That'd be funny. Come on, baby. All right, I'm probably gonna have to pry on it just like it did the head. Just slightly, but like in here is actually a good spot. There's a pretty good reinforced spot. They may even actually design it to pry right there. Let me just make sure before I do that I've got all the bolts out. Don't want to be missing any. And we got those. That's not anything. That's part of the pan, so it's coming up. Yeah, okay, let's just pry slightly with something. Maybe a screwdriver a little bit. Really don't want to pry with a screw. There we go. It took almost enough force. Otherwise I would have switched tools, because that's not something you're supposed to do with the snap-on screwdriver. Alrighty, we got one side loose anyway. Let's get the other side broken free. Come on, baby. There it is. Let's pull this off and flip it around. Okay, so not perfect oil changes. Definitely an old motor that someone probably neglected a bit, but that doesn't really matter. All these parts are going to the machine shop, so it doesn't matter. They're all going to be like brand new. So here's the rear pickup tube setup and the windage tray, and then we've got the pump up front. Looks like it has some sludge and crap on it, but we'll inspect all that more thoroughly. And there's the beefy Vanos rods that we're about to take a peek at, which I'm very excited to see, because that's one of the reasons also for using this engine. Besides the dual valve springs and that head, they've got these beefy ass rods, so we can save a bunch of money and still make a lot of torque. And then right here is where you would weld the nut to the gear for the oil pump. We'll get to that in a second. Let's get the, let's see, what are we gonna do first? I guess we'll remove the pump and windage tray, and then we'll have more access to be able to shove a block of wood in here against a main journal, and then we can zap this bolt off with my Milwaukee, which I hope the battery is fully charged, but I think it is. So let's do that. Let's see, I need to clean my hands slightly. Even though it was a very messy job, but I'm like, always want to stay a little bit clean. I kind of get anal about it, and I'm just, it annoys me when my hands are super dirty all the time. All right, oil pump, it's 13. Should be 3 of them. And one of them, I believe, I can't remember which one of them, but one of the 3 is on a dowel. So it can't just like slide to the side necessarily. It can rotate, but it can't slide to the side. All right, those are oil pump. Then the pickup tube. There's 10s into that bracket there. So let's get a 10. There we go. Put all the oil pump stuff on that. And we can't quite get to those. But we probably can remove the windage tray, can't we? No? Let's see. Let's see, I can't remember how difficult it is to break loose this oil pump nut. Maybe I should do that first. I think that's probably the ticket. It is reverse thread, so you break it loose going to clockwise, which is counterintuitive, but not counterclockwise. So yeah, I'll just bolt this down so it has a little support there while I put some torque on it. Let's see, I can't remember what size. 17? Yeah, 17. I'm not gonna do that. I thought I was, but I'm not gonna do that. I'm not that ballsy. Even though that thing doesn't put out that much torque, I'm just not gonna do that. Oh, it's just gonna spin the motor, okay. Well, we need our block of wood sooner than we thought, and I believe it's in the bed of the truck. So, I guess let's just go get it. don't know if it's in here or not. I don't think I would have put it in the back seat, but I'll look anyway. Nope. I wonder if it fell out while I was driving or something. Okay. We'll have to figure out a different way to hold it so it doesn't spin on us. Alright. I didn't leave it around here somewhere, did I? Could have sworn I brought one. Oh, there it is. I knew I brought one. Okay, so the idea behind the block of the wood is you can just wedge it in here against the main, and although not against the pickup tube, let's get the pickup tube out of the way first. But basically wedge it in there against the main, and it prevents it from turning by just sandwiching against the block. And the block of wood will just like creak and crack a little bit and maybe break some, but that's fine. We don't care, it's sacrificial. So that's kind of the point behind that. Let's get this pickup tube off. Come on, baby. Fortunately, there's not really any access in here for any kind of power tools. Buck and bolt. 2 days later. Let's see, can we even get to that one? Well, you know what? Why don't I'll remove the windage tray instead, because I think I can probably get to all those. If I just like flex on the tube a little bit, it'll be fine. I can get to all those, and then we can wedge it at a different main journal instead of that one right there by the tube, because the tube is kind of annoying at that angle. I don't really have a good wobble over here to do this, so we're gonna have to improvise a little bit. So here we go. Back on this thing for the tray. Get those with wrenches. Okay, more bolts. And we need to get those two with a 10 mil wrench, which I'm praying we have in here, but fortunately I gotta dig for it. A lot. I just threw a bunch of this crap back in here to make it look a little bit more clean around here because I'm making such a mess. But now I need stuff out of here, of course. And I know I have a 10 in here. I just don't know where it is. I mean, technically that's a 10, worst case scenario. Could have sworn I had a ratcheting 10. Is this it? Damn it. 3/8. It's gonna be the last one I find. Well, I mean, that kind of makes sense. You stop looking when you find it, right? But all right, whatever. We'll use a line wrench, I guess. So at the right angle. See if we can get in there. All right, screw it. I'm just gonna flex it over more. That's this ridiculous. There we go. That was the worst case scenario. This one's easier. Okay. Hopefully we'll have enough battery to get through this. I was really trying to get the rotating assembly out and ready for the machine shop tomorrow. Wasn't really gonna explain any more beyond, I guess, taking the pistons and rods out, but that's pretty easy. You basically just undo the rod caps and then wiggle them off gently, and then kind of just slide the piston and rod out the other end of at the top of the block, which is underneath right now. So, okay, windage tray can come off. And now we can put our piece of wood in one of these guys. So let's say, let's rotate it a little bit. Put it right here. Okay. And keep in mind, this block's totally sacrificial, and we know that even if it breaks off some wood in there, it doesn't matter. Everything's coming out. It's all getting cleaned. Okay. We should be okay. Let me just go ahead and try to turn it. It's a 17. I'm not doing that. There we go. Got it. So obviously you can see it is reverse thread. I just broke it loose going clockwise. And it was actually more torque than I expected, but no problem at all. You can pull the gear off now. And let the chain hang. And then we'll go ahead and take these back out. They were just in there for stability while I was torquing on it. Really, I could probably do with just one, but two is always better. Okay, back there for the oil pump. And now we can pull this bad boy off. Go put it in the pan, because I'm sure it's gonna drip. And we've done enough oil stains already. Okay, now we need to get the crank bolt off. This is the Jesus bolt. It is, the spec on it's 300 foot-pounds. So I have the Milwaukee M18 fuel we're gonna use, and pray that it has enough battery and nothing goes flying. But torquing these properly is also absolutely critical when you're putting one together, because they have just a little woodruff key on the crank snout, and if you don't torque it and put enough friction and force on there, it can wobble and basically break the woodruff key. You lose timing, bend all your valves, or lose the motor. I think that happened to Alberto Big Boost a couple of times. And I don't know, you just gotta torque it right, man. Torque it to 300. I actually torqued the one in my other engine to 325. So, just being an overachiever. Let's see if this bad boy will do it. We're gonna turn it to maximum crunk. And this is a left torque bolt. It's not like reverse or anything. The only reason the oil pump is reverse is the direction it turns, I guess. Let me think about that. I don't know why oil pumps are reverse and cranks aren't. But yeah. So technically I need to put this block of wood on the other side. Let's see if we can get it on the same number 5 right there. And I'll take a quick bathroom break and check GoPro battery, make sure we're not about to die in the middle of this. But basically, once we get that bolt loose, we'll get the front end off, the damper, and then the AC bracket, and then we just remove all the caps, the rod caps, main caps, pretty much everything. Take the rod end off. It separates in the middle. You know, just pull it up and you kind of wiggle them up. And be gentle with them. You don't want to scratch them or anything. You really want to be gentle with this stuff. It is strong, but you still want to be gentle. So wiggle them up, and then you can kind of just work your way pushing down on the rod, and the piston and rod combo will slide out the cylinder on the other end. And then you just take all the main caps out, and then you can just lift the crank out. That's it. Oh, although you can't quite lift the crank out because you do have to take the front timing cover off. I have changed the resolution a little bit. I'm wondering if this is going to be better, because I noticed rewatching the last clip that a lot of stuff was above where you guys could see. So hopefully this is better. We'll see. Sorry if this screws with the overall output of the video. Last off, we left off, basically we have to get the crank bolt off. So I've wedged this wood block on number 5, and we're gonna give it a shot with the Milwaukee and see what happens. Nothing so far. It's basically just turning the crank. Looks like it. Turned it into the wood. Well, I don't have any more blocks of wood. I wonder what I did last time. I guess I had a huge breaker bar. I was really hoping that was gonna work. Well, what to do? I'm gonna try it again, I guess. I wish I had another piece of wood, just to spread the load a little bit more than one journal, but I just don't. I don't have anything else sacrificial like that I can put in there, so I'll try it one more time. That's just not gonna happen, I guess. Even with the M18 fuel, it says it claims 1,400 foot-pounds of break loose torque, but you know, it does not seem to be happening. Even though that's a 300 spec. I don't have another battery, but I don't think that battery is weak. I think it's just really, really on there. So that sucks, but we can still pull out the pistons and rods and take a look at those. So I guess we'll just do that, and I'll leave the crank in it for now and leave this bracket on, and I'll come back with the big breaker bar and stuff. So let's just do that. And these are gonna be some 12-point sockets. I'm not sure what size. Let's see. Uh, 10 or 11 probably. Smaller than 11. Maybe even smaller than 10. Nope, it's a 10, of course. And we need a 12-point. That's a 6-point. Where's the 12-point? Is this it? Nope, another 6-point. There we go. Okay, 12-point, 10 millimeter. Goes on there. Let's remove a couple. Even this thing can't do it. Jeez. A lot of torque on those stock rod caps. Did not expect that. Alrighty, so now I'm just trying to wiggle the cap up, got it up, and I left the bolts in just slightly so that I could basically pull up kind of hard and it wouldn't just go flying. I'll pull the bolts all the way out. And pull the cap off. And see what a rod bearing looks like. All right, not bad. Looks pretty good. So now we can push down right here. Oh, and the bearing stayed on the crank for a second. Just from the oil film. It just got stuck. Okay. Push down a little bit more. And as you can see, it's going down the cylinder bore. I basically gently push it down. Try not to have it ride against the cylinder walls too hard or anything while you're doing this. And let's see, keep going, baby. We're almost past the rings, which is the only thing holding it in, basically. We've got that much out right now, top compression ring and the second compression ring, so just the oil rings are holding it. There we go. And now we gently bring it out. All right. And yeah, that's a pretty fatty rod for a stock. I guess that's why people like them, huh? So this bearing, like, literally could be reused. It's really incredible how these things just don't ever go through bearings. Pretty sure the numbering goes on the same side and the tangs go on the same side, but I can't remember 100%. I'll just put it that way for now and check the second one. That's number one. And I guess if we want to look at the piston a little bit, you're just going to see a ton of carbon buildup from over time, but the skirts actually look fine. There's not really like any weird wear or anything. And as you can see, these actually have a pretty beefy top ringland there, or whatever you want to call that. So regapping the rings on these things might be worthwhile, and just sending it. We'll see. Definitely cleaning them up though, for sure. All right. Next one. Really, you kind of want to do the ones that are in the same position at the same time. So like number 2 is way down right now, but I guess we can just rotate it over. It's just not gonna hurt anything. Get our block of wood out. Come on, baby. Okay. There we go. Quite a bit of torque on those. I think the ARP bolts specs about 43 foot-pounds, but I don't know what these stock ones are. They seem to be pretty up there too. Okay, so you just kind of wiggle the cap and got it free. And we pull the bolts out. These are actually marked B5. All marked B5. Interesting. So, oh, bearing stayed on the crank on this one too. Inside looks good. Oh, and I forgot to notice. Oh, they go this direction, so, and the bearing tang is there and here. So that means that you match them up on the same side. So I did do the other one correctly. There. All right. Next. Almost there. Not much to see here. I'm really just looking at the ground while I'm feeling around. Down the cylinder, trying to push on the rod to get the compression rings out from the blocked deck, which we just got one. Got the second one, there we go. Okay. And there's number 2. So that looks pretty good too. Number 2 looks good too. I'll probably cut the clip here shortly just because I'm just repeating this process throughout. It's really unfortunate that I can't get this loose right now. I really need to come back with a huge breaker bar. So I'll just do that part tomorrow. I'll make it a 2-part series, I guess, of just removing the crank and the last few pieces. We'll also look at the oil squirters or see if this engine even has any, which it does not. So that's interesting. Pretty much all other M50s have oil squirters in the block that spray up at the pistons. Although, hold on, I'm thinking wrong. They're actually down behind the main journal, so we wouldn't be able to see them right now. We could see them possibly if we flipped it over. But we'll see that in another video. I'll make it 2 parts. And I guess we'll just do an outro here. As you can see, I could maybe put a measuring tape on this rod, but this is a pretty beefy stock rod. These things are like, I guess you would call that an I-beam stock. And yeah, it looks almost like an eagle, but it's a stock rod. So I think that's why everyone raves about those. I know the Vanos rods in Tyler's engine are quite a bit narrower, but they're still really, really good for about 500 something wheel torque. These just can go a little bit higher than that, I guess. So yeah, let me clean my hands up and we'll turn this camera off. All right, you guys, I'm gonna shoot the outro on this as well. I have no idea what I look like right now. Probably hilarious with my hair and everything because I had this whole head strap thing on and just been sweating a lot in here. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned something. We've basically got the pistons and rods out of the bottom end. We still have to take the crank pulley loose. But even my Milwaukee can't do it right now. So I need to get some more wood to support the crank more, I think. Basically, it's just like biting into that one piece of wood I had and still just turning the crank. And if you can't hold the crank still, then the Milwaukee's not gonna be able to do its job. It's just gonna keep turning it. So I'm gonna get another way to wedge the crank in place, and then we'll get that loose, we'll get the AC bracket off, and we'll finally be able to get the timing cover off, rear cover off, crank out, and everything to the machine shop. So stay tuned and see you next time.